Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome. Glad to see you all here. I think we're going to be in for a treat today. Hearing from Dr. Monique Bury Ballard as she talks about becoming how to write your CV. But before we go into her, what I know is going to be excited presentation today, I just want to do a quick little no shame in it. To be able to advertise some of the things that we have going on here at the Black Doctoral Network. So let me just share this real quickly with you. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm putting it in presentation mode. This will be about 2-3 minutes. So first of all, I want to thank any of you who were at the national conference this past weekend in Los Angeles. It was amazing. The quality of the presentations, the panels, and the poster sessions, as well as all of the work that was done by the undergraduates. It was amazing. The professionalism of it, not to mention the number of people who were there as well. So again, thank you all for attending. If you were not able to attend this year, maybe next year or the spring event, I think you will be in for a treat. So I just wanted to give a plug for our upcoming workshop series. So next week on Wednesday, October the 30th, 2024 at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, we will be having Dr. Terry D. Cooper and Danielle T. Cooper presenting in the Black Doctoral Network workshop series. They will be talking about trauma-informed facilitation, life lessons, and classroom strategies. And you're in for a treat. There's going to be a double header. There's also going to be another presentation on that same Wednesday, next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time with Dr. Keith Adams, and he's going to be speaking with us about staying connected, empowering doctoral students to enhance mental health and well-being. So I just wanted to put that out there for your edification, and hopefully you'll be able to attend one of the two presentations on next week. And so without any further ado, let me introduce you to Dr. Monique Bury Ballard, who is going to be speaking with us today. I'm not going to read her entire bio, just wanted to put something out there for you to see as she's getting ready. Very well credentialed on here, as you can see, a lot of relevant experience. And I'm pretty sure in this day and age, all of us are looking to update our CVs, update our resumes, and hopefully Dr. Ballard would give us the understanding and difference between a resume and a CV, and how do we move from one to the next. So I will stop sharing my screen and let Dr. Ballard come to you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that warm introduction, Dr. Williams. I am elated to work with you again. I do have to say thank you once more to Black Doctoral Network for the phenomenal events that they host. I greatly appreciate and grow from my membership with BDN, and I hope that you do too. As Dr. Williams shared, I am Monique Bury Ballard, and I had wanted to address briefly what this session is going to be about. Of course, we're going to look at the distinctions between resumes and CVs. We're also going to get a chance to look at some exemplars, and I'd like to think of this as an interactive session, whereas it's going to be hands-on. And what I trust will occur is that I will equip you with the basic and the optional components of writing and authoring your own CV. With that being said, I encourage you to add your information into the chat as we progress. Pretty please do me a favor and use the hashtag BDN Workshop Series. That again is hashtag BDN Workshop Series as you interact with BDN and our workshops throughout the season. Without further delay, I'll share my screen now. If you do have any questions while we are conducting business today, feel free to add them to the chat, and I'm asked that our moderator, Dr. Williams, assist me with that.
Yes, and also moderating and helping me to do the moderation is Dr. Justin Mallett, Mallett. He will also be monitoring the chat as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that also, Dr. Mallett. With this, I am wanting to say how to write a CV. As I mentioned, I am Gary Ballard. I hail out of the Chicagoland area, and for you is my contact information. I like to engage oftentimes with constituents and people online, so feel free to take a screenshot if you choose of my content or my contact information. I am still here. I am working to advance the slides. When we're looking at CVs or curriculum vitae, there are different options on creating them. The first one, for example, could be through the use of artificial intelligence. We know that that is a hot button issue right now, to be or to not be, with utilizing AI to author a source. I will not use this platform to agree or disagree with the strengths or weaknesses as to why one should or should not utilize AI for authoring purposes. It is the individual's choice. A second option for authoring CVs are to outsource it. Of note, I have seen price tags of writing CVs upwards to $5,000 without any revisions or updates. As employees and typically academia, or if we are entrepreneurs, I trust that we don't have oftentimes $5,000 in our budget. Therefore, I wanted to utilize the platform today to give us some tips and guidelines on how to self-pen a CV. With that being said, I oftentimes think of us as leaders in education, typically utilizing the question, what is your why? If I can tell you all the truth, I am so tired of that question. The reason is my why for being in education is because I am trying to escape sometimes who I was. As we see in front of us, some of my first teachers were on the far left, my great-grandmother, Mary, in the center, my grandmother, Augustine, and on the far right, my mother, Terry. We also hail from Cherokee heritage, and with that being said, oftentimes stories are told through oral traditions. I am a first-generation college student, and my parents and family moved from an urban area to the suburbs in order to give us a better life. With that being said, I found that being the eldest of 6 children, the first to attend college, there often wasn't money in the budget for things such as extracurricular activities, special programs to enhance our learning, for example, AP coursework, and we had to make do with a lot of scraps that we had. Although we may have been deemed middle class, I am Gen X, and with a large family, money was sometimes scarce. Still trying to chase a dream and escape my past. An example of that is being a child of the 80s, I was able to see Dr. William H. Cosby Jr. teach us through education from picture page as a vignette on television during Saturday morning programming up until his esteemed show, The Cosby Show, all through a different world, where subliminally he taught us that education was a pinnacle of success. My family, my parents oftentimes echoed that sentiment as well. And being the eldest of 6 children, I found that school was my escapism. Sometimes having to wash clothes by hand, sometimes having to use public assistance, or sometimes having to go without. I found that education was going to be the demarcation for me to leave lower middle class up until upper class or upper middle class.
Excuse me, Dr. Barry Ballard.
Sure.
Can you switch your display settings? We're seeing the speaker view.
Most definitely. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I trust you can see the full screen now.
Yes.
Thank you. As I grew into an undergraduate student, I found that I had to make a decision. Do I chase my dream of being an artist, a country and western singer, for example, in Tennessee? Or do I do as my parents shared with me, their envision for me to become a pre-law major, optimally the first Black woman on the Supreme Court? Looking at some of the images here, I hope that those resonate with some of us being a Black or brown person growing up in the United States. And I feel blessed and fortunate that I have come full circle, not quite escaping who I am, but becoming more of who I am today. With that in mind, I oftentimes equate Maslow's hierarchy of needs to who we are as academics. I trust that most of us are very familiar with seeing this. It's usually shared in an undergraduate social sciences course. But I'd like to augment it by looking at it from an academic point of view. In other words, a pracademic, a practicing academic, whereas at the base level, we are survivors. Typically in academia, we have passed the test. We have obtained the higher education. We have become productive citizens, leaders in education, if you will. Oftentimes we appear smart to our family, even though we've been in school perhaps 14, 18, 22 years and have a stack of credentials. But people outside of our environment may not truly know what we do. I feel, though, amongst you all that I have found my people and we are self-actualized. With that in mind, we are truly visionaries. And one of the disconnects is that we oftentimes don't get a seat at the table in the ivory tower of academia. Keeping this in mind, one of the missing pieces I found is to create a CV. As we continue on this journey and thinking about the Gestaltian viewpoint of we are the sum of our parts, if I were to escape who I was, I may have to eradicate my middle school time at Crete-Monee School District. I may have to remove my undergraduate experience at a PWI at Albion College. I may have to remove one of my graduate degrees, for example, at Roosevelt University in Chicago, whereas I became an instructional designer and I truly embrace entrepreneurship. As I continued throughout my career path, I had gathered a lot of experiences. I had networked with a lot of people, but similar to maybe perhaps you, we tend to have only supporting roles. If I'm being real with my people, once again, I worked too damn hard to have a supporting role. I spent approximately $250,000 in education. I have poured blood, sweat, and tears into stacking in order to build a seat at the table, we need to be able to authenticate who we are on paper. Optimally, today's workshop will guide us to that. For a moment, I want to interact with you all to see what we know about CVs. With this in mind, can you please join me at either using the Kahoot app or, as we see in front of us, kahoot.it. Again, we're going to have just a quick interaction where as I'm at IT.
Dr. Ballard, you're breaking up.
As we engage through, I'm going to dissect what a CV is. With this in mind, I'm going to stop sharing this screen temporarily and open up our Kahoot. I'm about to share my screen once more to show you the join code with Kahoot. For those of you who are just joining, we are at kahoot.it, or we're using the Kahoot app. The game pin is loading. And if you are following along, the join code is 347076. Again, we're at kahoot.it, join code 347076. For those of you who may not have played Kahoot before, this is not a commercial for them. I have no affiliation with them. But especially during the pandemic, a lot of times my family, I shared with you, I'm the eldest of 6. We interacted with each other with this. We played birthday games, getting to know each other a little bit more deeply. We've utilized this in the classroom as well. I am currently working as a business education teacher in Joliet, Illinois, for approximately 200 students. If you are looking for an engaging piece for your students or for your course or event, I encourage Kahoot. I'll give it about 15 more seconds for us to join. If any are listening through audio, that join code again is 347076. I see quite a few scholars joining us. I like games as well. And the topic of this one is, what are the components or what constitutes a CV? We're going to start in about 5 more seconds. All right, good luck. Audio, the question is, what is a CV? We have different options. A comprehensive statement of one's educational background, teaching, and research. B, a comprehensive statement of educational backgrounds. C, a comprehensive statement of teaching, or D, a comprehensive statement of research. It looks like everyone obtained the correct answer for A. A CV is a comprehensive statement of one's educational background, teaching, and research. We will dig deeper into that meaning during today's workshop. Looking at our places, we got Maya in top place with that speed, Mark B in second, and we have D showing us what's what at 565 points. Second question, where is a CV typically used? A, the VITA or CV is typically used within academia. B, the CV is typically used within an elementary school setting. C, a VITA is used within the home. Or D, it is typically used for corporate jobs. Our responses are all correct, with the first choice, or A, the CV or VITA is typically used within academia. Ooh, I was messing with the right group. You all are geniuses. We still have Maya in top place, Mark B in second place, and D in third. Outstanding. For our third and final question, when is the full workshop? Is full CV used in A, when applying for academic positions, or B, when applying for non-academic positions? C, when applying for a home mortgage or a corporate job? And once again, our beautiful scholars achieved success. They figured out that the answer was A, we use it for applying for academic positions. Viewing our podium results of our winners. I like that we have some competitors here. We have Mark in third place, Dee in second place, and Maya in first. Outstanding positionality scholars. Thank you for joining me with that. I'm going to stop sharing from this view and then join or share from another. While I'm doing that, now's a great time to address any gap out. Okay. This sounds fair. I trust our moderators are awesome as I pull up our next screen share. I am still here. I'm advancing towards our next slide. As we look at this toggle here, it is a mind map of sorts of what constitutes or what components are included in the CV. I won't read them all to you because they are varied per person. And some of the highlights that I will showcase is that it is more than fair to include things that you may not have thought of, such as educational travel, research that you have recently conducted, I would express within the past 2 to 3 years, or thinking of the doctoral mindset, something within 5-year period. We're also going to include professional associations to signal or virtue signal what type of programs you have interest in or that you are vested into. Typically, we utilize these types of components to leverage positions within academia. As I go deeper into this, give a fuller picture. Looking at the left side, there are 7 different aspects of bare bones CV, beginning with the heading towards education and relevant experiences. We would also tend to include publications, presentations, the honors and awards that you, the author, has received, as well as references. A word about references I'll share in a moment. Looking on the right side of the screen, we see that there are approximately 8 optional sections that may be included in the CV. I'm going to pause at this point because we are on the track towards becoming. Although these sections are optional, I strongly encourage that you include them. Differentiator by communicating how you are separate from your competitors. Another reason why I would strongly advocate for your inclusion of the optional sections is because it further substantiates your foothold into academia. Again, we're going to spend some of the time of the workshop today working through some of these components. I just wanted you to glean that the optional sections include 8 distinct types, such as the qualifications and skills that one possesses, the grants that you have received, service that you have provided to your current or historical institutions, certifications that you've gotten along the way, which includes licenses, such as is the case if you are a K through 12 educator, Professional associations are more than appropriate to include here, as I mentioned. Research that you're conducting recently or now, your involvement within the community. In a moment, I'll share with you what type of areas we will highlight there, as well as travel that you've done from an educational perspective.
Excuse
As
me,
we
Dr.
break- Go
Just one
ahead,
quick thing. I just wanted to make all of our participants aware that I've dropped several things in the chat. The exemplars for CB, a link to the presentation, as well as some samples. I'm assuming those are of resumes and CVs, as well as everything that you're covering right now, and also to include all of your contact information on all of your various platforms, the web, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. So please look at the chat to get all of her contact information. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. While Dr. Williams has highlighted the aspect of the chat, there should be a section there provided for you that says draft. At this point, I'd like for you to find the section in the chat that highlights the word draft, and it includes these different components there. At this point, I'm going to stop talking so that you may capture the draft components, copy it, and paste it into a document. This is going to be the start of your first or rough draft of your CV. To repeat, in just a moment, I will quiet my voice as you look in the chat, find and copy the heading that says draft, and include the section that looks like this. You will paste that into a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word document. This is going to begin our rough draft of our CV. I'll remain silent for the next few moments.
And Dr. Ballard, while you are contemplating, I do have a question in the chat. Can military experience be part of one's CV? And as we have the draft up, I think this is an appropriate place to ask that question.
I definitely agree with that, and that is an outstanding question. Yes, military experience is a great distinction to include in the CV. Although it varies per person, I would encourage that you include it within the institutional service section. Again, include your military service in the institutional service section. It is also appropriate to include in your title whichever rank that you last held within the military. So in that, thank you for your service. I'll give us approximately 15 more seconds, if needed, to copy and paste the draft that we will begin working on shortly. While we're doing that, I'm so proud of you all for coming. Thank you. I know it's been a long day. For example, we probably worked all day. We may be traveling. We may be coming and pausing for a moment to reflect on our greatness, to reflect on our genius, stop for a moment on the family duties we may have. Kudos for continuing to grow on your journey. I'm so happy and grateful that you chose to join BDN through this and to allow me to help facilitate it. Welcome. As we advance on, beginning with our rough draft. In this first section for heading, we're going to take a few moments to actively change our rough draft to our first draft. We've had the outline shared in the chat now. And in the heading section, I'm asking you to add your name, your first name, probably your middle initial at this point. And I would strongly encourage you to use your last names, plural, if needed. One of the reasons why, and it is a personal choice, but you may have noticed that I included photos of my ancestors in mine. I feel that in some capacities, we are our ancestors' dreams. Bring their names to the table as well. Hyphenate your name to at least perhaps one generation. Although this is not a legally binding document, I feel that it is more than appropriate to share the light, to share the names of who came before us. With that being said, for your heading, include your first name, middle initial, and last name. Please include your professional email address as well. And note about email addresses, I would highly encourage you to not utilize the institution you are affiliated with. For example, with my doctoral program, I would not use their school-issued email address, just in case you sever ties or graduate or evolve from that position. Please include a professional email address that is personal for you. If you do not have one yet, go ahead and get one, please, and thank you. The next aspect of the heading would be a mailing address. One mailing address, please. Sometimes authors choose to either use a post office box in case they move. Sometimes they choose to use their residential address. Sometimes they tend to use their work mailing address. Using the work mailing address may be appropriate here if you do not want people to have access to your personal residence or your personal post office box. However, be mindful to perhaps include a reminder every year or every 6 months to check and change your mailing address on your CV if needed. The last part of the heading that we can see that is required is the phone number. With that in mind, oftentimes we tend to utilize communication modalities such as text messages, FaceTimes, or WhatsApps. If you're comfortable including that you have a iPhone, for example, or you're open to receiving text messages, that is fair to include as well, phone/text, so that people can reach you a little bit more easily. We may want to be mindful of generational differences where not everyone is as comfortable picking up the telephone and speaking. So text would be an appropriate modality to communicate to or communicate with. As we continue to the next section, this is still under the basic component part, and education is what is going to be asked to be included into your CV. We want to highlight 4 distinct parts when we're speaking of our education section. The name of the institution, including its city and state. If it is outside of United States, I would encourage that you include the country as well. Please also include the degree type. For example, is this a bachelor's degree, an associate's degree? Is it a doctoral degree? Which type? Include your major as well. This is one of the key distinctions between academics, resumes, or CVs. The major may be unique or specifically branded to a university. In the case of my doctoral work, it was an interdisciplinary, nonprofit, social entrepreneurship specialty. Include all those names in there. Those signal or virtue signal as well as keywords to highlight you for research interests, for projects, and for future partnerships. To state that a different way, include all the names of your major, all the departments that your major was affiliated with. This is an appropriate place to do so. The last piece that you are including in the education sector is going to be the month and the year in which you are expected to graduate or did graduate. I have to encourage you to repeat this for all of your institutions. One of the distinctions, though, that I want to highlight with education, it is appropriate to include the degrees, not necessarily the diplomas or the certificates. Diplomas and certificates will go into another section. This education section is strictly for degrees. As we continue, our third section in the basic part, is going to be relevant experiences. When we're thinking about relevant experiences, I'd like you to consider it from a trifecta or a three-pronged approach. Consider your research that you've conducted or will conduct. Consider the teachings that you have participated in. And consider administration. Bringing to the table my experience from business administration, oftentimes we lose out on roles in academia because we are not highlighting our leadership experiences or where we have led administration at. When we choose to omit, whether actively or involuntarily, we are not usually considered for administrative roles. That tends to be where we're relegated to the supporting roles, an assistant, an associate. Your unofficial assignment after we leave each other's side is to think through the administration that you've done. By administration, I am talking about times where you coordinated, where you developed, where you evaluated, where you trained. We are looking at different aspects of leadership to highlight how you can be in charge. To restate that differently, when we are looking at relevant experiences, I want you to consider your drafting and your authoring of it from three different perspectives. One, the research category, two, the teachings category, and three, the administration category. With this section and with all the sections here, we may find that, oh no, I am missing some of these aspects. That is okay. That is what the point of authoring the CV is for. While some may agree that AI is an easier form of creating or becoming and illustrating the bright light that you are, when we author it ourselves and see the gaps in our learning or the deficiencies that we may not have yet filled in these suggested components, it is okay. That is going to give you then a signal of what you want to have as a goal as you evolve throughout the next year. It will also highlight to you some of the holes you may need to fill. An example, if I notice that I have approximately 2 to 3 research pieces that I'm working on, but I have not ever taught, and I have some leadership, some administration, a goal of mine for the upcoming year would be to focus on gaining teaching experience. Once more, you do not need to have all of these sections filled yet. You are evolving, you are becoming. This is just going to signal to you as we spend time with ourselves in the paper, seeing what we may lack and having a goal in mind, reflecting on what we need to develop and increase. I trust that you continued reading as I was speaking. With our relevant experiences, make sure you highlight where you obtained these experiences from through the titles of the organization, the title that you worked as, or the position that you worked as, the location, where you worked, as well as your activities, your accomplishment, and your successes. This is where we tend to bridge the gap from the resume to the CV, where we highlight and lead with action words in these bullet point summaries. This
Dr. Ball, before you go on to the next slide, I see that you're on the last bullet. We have a hand. Could you come off of mute, please?
Yeah. Hi. Thank you for putting this together. Thank you for acknowledging me as well. And I'm learning so much, but I'm having a problem with the teaching section because I just recently received my doctorate a couple of months ago. And yay, I know, right? And I go to Africa once a month, once a year, to teach a curriculum that I wrote about 6 years ago for 5th and 6th graders for money and business. I'm an accountant. and I have a wealth of experience in accounting. I'm having a problem with how to put my teaching experience on when I only have it in Africa, and is that relevant to America?
It most definitely is, Professor. Include that. I don't care where it's at, include it. And
Okay.
it sounds like to me that you have experience from when did you start this program?
Wait, which program? The
Which
doctoral
year?
program?
The one that you're teaching in Africa, the curricula you're
Oh,
teaching in Africa.
I started when I first went the first year in 2018, it was just a classroom that I went to motivate the students. But then I got signed up to actually write a curriculum for them. I mean, it's nothing in detail because it's not. I'm writing a curriculum now for the Youth Business Alliance out here in LA, but it's nowhere near detailed as the one out here. But they needed some structure for teaching the money and business course. And so I really don't know how to structure that because it's not relevant to any of the jobs that I'm going for adjunct teaching professors out here. So I just wanted to know how to structure it.
This makes a lot of sense. Kudos, but you got to stop diminishing your life. You're saying only, you say it was just, What I heard is that from 2018 to today, you have taught. Not only did you teach, you are authoring curriculum. You are creating instruction or design instruction on an international scale.
Okay. I like that. Okay, now I need you in my back pocket when I'm writing this. So, but I do
Keep
get
up
it.
the
You're
good
absolutely
work.
right. Okay, I like that. I'm gonna take some notes. Thank you.
Excellent.
So,
You're
so,
welcome.
So, Dr. Monique, I just want to make two observations. One, we only have about 15 minutes left, but I also want to acknowledge Dr. Mark Brown has had his hand up. And again, that we have about 15 minutes left. But I do want to make sure that we get Dr. Mark Brown's question answered. So, sir, if you could come off of mute, please.
Yes, ma'am. Hello, Dr. Ballard. Thank you very much for teaching this period of instruction. As Dr. McFadden was saying, I spent 30 years in the Marine Corps, and I got my doctorate in 2019, but I've been working for the government since, so I have not taught officially. I did teach some courses and trainings in the military, but I have not taught anything since then. So I'm trying to figure out how do I fill that gap in my CV. Thank you.
You're welcome, Dr. Brown. Thank you for your service. And not to diminish your light again, what I heard you say is you led training and development. Training is a synonym for teaching. You facilitated instruction. How many years, sir, did you do this for?
I did it for the last 15 years out of the 30 years that I was in.
Okay, so you began that in which year? I'm going to say about 2009, is it, to
2009,
present?
2008, maybe a little before that, yeah.
Okay, and to present?
I don't teach at this time. I work for the military now, but I do not teach or train. I lead.
This is honest and fair. Please include those 15-year time periods, so 2008 until 15 years later. And yes, very similarly, you have taught adult instruction or you have led adult instruction. You have facilitated trainings. Although we did not necessarily have the title of professor in that environment, it's to me, you taught for the private sector. This is more than
I think you're frozen, Dr. Ballard.
Dr. Ballard, I think you're frozen. Look like you're unfrozen, unfrozen now.
okay, excellent. Yes, as I shared with Dr. Brown, thank you guys for that. That yes, this is more than worthy of inclusion and include the start and end dates
Yes.
as well as the moniker you led instruction for a private institution.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I trust that I can share this presentation with the group if they choose. If we have other questions, I'm open to answering those at that time too.
Dr. Ballard, we don't have anything in the chat right now. The one asking about not having any teaching experience, I think you've already answered that one, so you can move on.
Excellent, thank you. As we see for the next section in the basic section, we want to include publications. If I'm being honest with you all again, when I created my first CV, this is where I felt not worthy at, where I initially felt like imposter syndrome had set in. Publication section is meant to highlight not only what you have done career-wise, why we are as smart and erudite as we are, but also to virtue signal that I am a published author. A note about published authors, though. Oftentimes, we can create our own websites. We can post what we choose, and it may not be a peer-reviewed journal, but published is published. I got to pause for a moment with that because I may catch some fire against that. A real-life example is an independent journalist. An independent journalist may not necessarily work for a major network. However, they research, they write, and they report and publish their work. Rewinding time back approximately 25 years ago, when blogs were the rage, we wrote, we posted, we published. Another case study of that may not necessarily be peer-reviewed is Wikipedia. I am noticing that within the past 3 to 5 years, K through 12 environments are utilizing Wikipedia as a reputable source by going to the sources within an article. With that being said, I wanted to restate it. Feel free to create your own platform to publish. This is ideal to do if you have not had a peer-reviewed published journal yet. If you have had a peer-reviewed published journal, then include these into the publication section. For either format, the independent publishing or the peer-reviewed journals, you want to cite it related to the bibliography format of your discipline. For example, if you are of the business discipline, you'd probably use Chicago or Tiberian or APA. If you're from the social sciences, you'd utilize APA citation. If you're from English, for example, you'd use MLA. Show your professionalism and dedication to your discipline by including your citations within your CV. With this be in mind as well, especially for those who are on the self-publishing route. Oftentimes, I have seen scholars as well as lay people, if you will, create websites and post their CV online. In those cases, the bibliography record is appropriate to include there to easily build up your citations, your reviews, and have your name more cemented in education or as creating new knowledge or new practices.
Excuse me, Dr. Ballard, real quick. Dr. Mark is asking, can one use their dissertation as a publication?
Most definitely, yes. Yes, that is the short answer. Oftentimes for the Research 1 and Research 2 institutions, those schools will tend to publish, sometimes for a fee, sometimes without, doctoral students' dissertations. If you happen to go to or graduate from an institution that did not have that, you can self-publish, but along the way, you can still cite your source, cite yourself. Dr. McFashion, I see your hand is raised too.
Real quick. So I was going to ask that question. That was a great question. And on top of that, can I also use inserts, like excerpts from my dissertation to put on my website? for publication? Like, and each time I do that will that count, or how do I divide that up? How, like, because there's certain sections. Well, my dissertation is a philosophy piece and a DBA piece. It's what's the impact of healing adverse childhood experiences on entrepreneur intentions. So I have several sections broken up, and I wanted to know if I just threw about 4 different sections on my website, would that count as my publications if I haven't had a peer review?
This is an outstanding question. That posting your own excerpts on your website will not amplify your count on ProQuest, where peer-reviewed journal reviews and citations are accumulated. However, if you use keywords in your travels online, if you are networking and partnering with people, showing yourself as a leader by citing yourself is still highly appropriate. I'm going to pause this conversation for just a moment, because if I'm being real with my good people once more, part of the game of showing our knowledge and acumen is to give the illusion that we are big and bright and famous, successful, if you will. Oftentimes, businesses, research grants and opportunities are looking to partner with the rock stars. If we leverage DEI into that and appear larger than life in a digital playground, congrats, we have arrived. What I see sometimes, more times than not, is that vanity pieces occur where people may pay for their own website, pay for their own domain name, publish and post themselves and cite themselves. Could you imagine if while you're on LinkedIn, instead of restating or rehashing something for the upteenth time, you have it already on your website? You cite and link to your website, drsmith.com. Oh, wow, you look phenomenal. You've arrived. And truly, we only spent about $500 a year on a domain name and web hosting. Definitely post yourself on your own website, cite yourself, include excerpts, because why not? We are experts. Why not?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. As I am showing with presentations and conferences, make sure that we include, please and thank you, a description of what the heck you did at that presentation. Make sure that you are including oral presentations and posters. I have seen people go all the way back to their undergraduate experience to include on their CV. Yes, please and thank you. You did that work. You're citing yourself. It is more than appropriate to have a complete record of your collegiate experience. As I mentioned, I know that we will probably go over time here, but to be respectful of time, I'm going to stop at the end of the basic sections today. However, I will make this presentation available where it goes into more depth about the optional sections too. The sixth and next to last section of our basic section of the CV is to include your awards and honors. At this point, we are going to name names of scholarships that we've been offered or awarded, fellowships, assistantships, honors that we've been awarded or recognized for, as well as teaching or research awards. I do want to add distinction here. If you did not accept the assistantship, for example, included anyway, it was awarded to you. It was a gift to you. Included that shows that you are worthy of praise. And on the CV, this is where we are accumulating our record of praise at. If you have been awarded a scholarship for $50, for example, include that. No one's saying how much is a threshold. Include it. We are building a long record showing why we are of importance and deserve to be in the ivory tower as well. Another example here I would recommend, if you have sought fundraising for community service positions. For example, if you led a fundraising drive for glasses, service for sight, for example, include this. You championed a cause, you led it, include it. Our final section that we'll get to today is to include your references. A list here of between 3 and 5 people. I like to play the mix of either, if I'm choosing an odd number, the majority of them will be professional and the minority will be personal. An example, if I have 5 references, 3 of them will be professional, 2 will be personal. It is at this point too that I like to consider a mix of references, maybe consider different genders to be included in your references, as well as different ethnicities. It speaks to, when we do that, it speaks to the reader of, I am open, I embrace change, I value equity, I am one of many. I'm also going to ask that you have your references listed on a separate sheet from your main CV, just in case it needs to be removed, depending on who you are submitting your CV for. For example, for a competitive grant, or another example, to obtain funding from a state institution, for if you created a project or are writing a request for a proposal. You may want to eliminate your references there. Therefore, create them on a list on a different sheet. A word to the wise for references, I tend to include a work phone number for that, as well as an email address, a professional email address there. If you know their title, and I hope you do, if they're worthy to be on your reference list, include their title too, because that holds extra weight. I will stop sharing this for a moment.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ballard. That has been an amazing amount of information. We have included her email and phone numbers and all of her social media platforms that she's on in the chat. Right now, I've dropped the evaluation into the chat as well. I please ask that you take a moment to fill out the evaluation. That's how we get our feedback, where we can make these even more fabulous than what they are right now. And so as you're doing that, and we have a couple minutes, I do have a question in there. Do we date the awards or just list them while the rest of us are completing the evaluation form?
This is a fair question. That is up to you. If you are a recent graduate and want to showcase your dates of, look, I just graduated in 2020 and I have a list of these awards stemming from 2019. For the young professional, it may be appropriate to include the dates. For others, I would say no. If you've graduated 5 years or more, do not include the dates. We are accumulating a list at this point. Feel free to remove or eliminate the date then.
Okay, so I'm checking the chat and I don't see any questions scrolling up. Dr. Mallet, do you see any questions in the chat that I may have missed? Dr. Justin Mallet, I'm scrolling down really quickly. I don't see any. So without seeing any and being respectful of everyone's time, again, Dr. Ballard, we want to thank you for an amazing presentation. I've dropped all of her contact information in the chat for those of you who have additional questions. I know I have some additional questions and I plan on reaching out to her, as well as clicking on all of those wonderful links that she gave us that are also in the chat. So again, just want to remind you that we will be doing this again next week. I think it's myself and Dr. Ballard. She will be facilitating for me. We have two speakers on next Wednesday, one at 1 o'clock Eastern time and the other at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. So that gives you some flexibility to be able to attend one or both. We'd love to have you at both. So see you next week.